very important that we recognize women's history. I think it's only through recognizing what our achievements are that help to possibly, hopefully in the future, change situations throughout the world for women.
I think it needs to be woven into everything that we do day in and day out. But at the end of the day, like women's rights, our equal rights, our human rights are the same thing. And so I think there needs to be a greater focus on how can the collective help all the time instead of like just one time a year.
Women's history is about making a better future. So, I mean, I'm a parent of a 8-year-old daughter, and I have to not raise a child, I have to raise someone who's going to be a functioning adult in society.
And it's all the trailblazers of the women who were the first in any category within the 5 services. I retired as a commander in the U.S. Coast Guard Reserve. The women from the 1970s and 80s, I can't even imagine what they went through. And they were all trailblazers walking down that path that was very small and narrow. And then the more women who walked down that path being in the different services just made it wider and wider and actually easier for the rest of us to come through.
When I looked back, it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Just like such a trailblazer for women's rights, and a Jewish woman like myself, which is really cool.
So for me, like Hedy Lamarr, I just love her. She was incredibly skilled as an actress, and in addition to being beautiful, she was an inventor. She had all these great ideas, and she was really into science, and she would do research, and she was a tinkerer, and those 2 kind of facets of womanhood, 3 facets really, being independent, being beautiful, and being intelligent, weren't always prized for centuries.
I would say former First Lady Michelle Obama. One of my favorite lines from her book, Becoming, is about perseverance. You may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all of the world's problems at once, but don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because history has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own.
So the woman that's inspired me the most, I would say, is my mom, and people who are like my mom, and every other woman who's like my mom, who shares this past experience of being a refugee and having to leave a home and life that they love and relocate to a completely different country.
It has to be Mother Teresa. She was a tiny lady, very small, but she did great things in her life out of compassion and love. And she was known by many throughout the whole world for the work she did.
I think that work-life balance is a perception, and that it's kind of unique to every individual and how they understand themselves. You define your own definition of balance and what that means to you and how you like to spend that time away from work.
And I would say if you do have work-life balance your entire life, I would say to you that you are maybe not reaching your full potential. And I think the key is to understand, what do you want as a woman? What are your personal goals and what are your career goals? Make that decision and then let everybody know that is your decision. Because at work balance, 1 month you might have it, the next month you might not have it. And that could even be years that you don't have the work-life balance. When I look back at my past 20 years, because I just retired from the Coast Guard Reserves January of 2019, I did not have work-life balance, and it was tough, and it was demanding, and many times I felt like I was just going to completely, utterly break down. But now that I only have one career, I look back at that, and if I had work-life balance, I would have never achieved the things I did in the military. I reached the rank of commander in the Coast Guard Reserves. I did a tour in Iraq and led operations in Iraq. And to be honest with you, I couldn't have done that if I always had that work-life balance. So it's okay if you don't have life-work balance?
Resilient.
Compassion.
It's easy, it's resilience.
To go with multifaceted.
Resilience and survivor.
I try to encourage other women to not always say yes. I have a lot of women that I'm friends with that are amazing people, like, you know, have great careers and PhDs and all kinds of things, but they're always overextending themselves. And they're always like, oh, yes, I can do that, and yes, I can do this. And so sometimes I go, hey, you know, you don't always have to say yes, like, or delegate out to somebody else. Like, let us know when we can help.
Women need to be allies with other women. If it's a colleague of mine that I have to work closely with regularly, I want to have that be a good dynamic. So I want to understand their goals, their personal constraints that they're working with, so that I can empathize and come from a place of understanding and support.
And so being a friend and mentoring and showing the good, the bad, the ugly of what's occurred in your life and passing that down to the next one. But the simple smile, being friendly, I think is key.
If we never try, then we'll never know what we're capable of achieving.